So, hello everyone. Welcome to the March 2025 EVerest Technical Steering Committee. Super happy to have you here. Some quick highlights of the month. OCMP 2.1 got finally merged into main. We got some great feedback from testivals that it worked super flawlessly, and it turned out that happened because EVerest was always the go-to system for cross-testing while developing the backends. So I think we are where we want to be. We got set point support in EVerest. We got TLS 1.3 support in the -20 stack. We got bidirectional -20 support also now on the EV simulator. So also for backend folks or whoever want to play with the simulated charger, this also now comes with -20 bidirectional. And we're on the brink of getting rid of JavaScript also in the simulation. On the productive stack, it was never in use, but this got more and more extended. Just quick antitrust policy. There could be competitors here in the meeting, so please behave. Please respect the law. And yeah, having said that, for everyone on the recording, you can always jump to the other chapters. Just watch on YouTube. There in the description, you can click on timestamps. But let's start with what's new. With event recap, what happened over the last 4 weeks. And there was the Embedded World in Nuremberg, Germany. Really big trade show when it comes to electrical components. And there was not super much, but still a lot of charging going on. Some of my colleagues and also from other companies met there, present the EVCS Cube, which is basically a super cheap playground system for building your own DC charger. It's highly subsidized from a lot of different companies, just to quickly get started with charging with DC, and you can flip out components however you like, so you can quickly get started with building your own custom DC charger. And this can be a skeleton or Frankenstein charger where you can exchange a leg or an arm for whatever you want to have there. EV Charging Special Interest Group. Robert isn't here, but I can maybe quickly cover this. Citrina has got an update. They plan to release the 1.6 release already next week, and there's also a webinar upcoming. Quickly forgot, there will also be a webinar on the Cube thing on the 1st of April. I think there's a lot of signups already. You can also sign up for that. And no other presentations in the EV Charging SIG happened. So let's hand over to the working groups. Who want to start with grid integration?
I can cover that one. It was already mentioned in the highlights that the large PR for the integration of set points into the energy management algorithm has been merged. That was open for quite some time because also the changes were quite large, and it's now merged, and it is the foundation for the further development of OSPP 2.1 and also the integration of set points for EEBus and for everything that's coming for the -20. So it contained like a little bit of refactoring of the types that we have within EVerest for sending charging profiles around, and we can now include set points in there. So that's very good that we got this merged. On top of that, on the ISO 15118-20 side, we have worked on the bidirectional integration into the EVSE manager. So the libiso part, the library part was already quite far, and there were some things left in the EVSE manager that have now been addressed, but the work is still ongoing there. The same is true for OSPP 2.1, where we, of course, want to get started with the bidirectional power transfer functional block Q, but also the smart charging functional block has been extended, so the use cases are the same. We have K01 for setting charging profiles, K08 for getting the composite schedules, probably the most relevant use cases, and they have lots of new requirements in OSPP 2.1 that we need to address first because we can dive deeper into the bidirectional charging support. And for K01, there's already a pull request open to like verify all kinds of profiles that can now have lots of more information coming from the CSMS. And the OpenADR PR is still being worked at. Kai is played around with it, and we are currently waiting for some feedback from the contributors. But it's also in making good progress, I would say.
Thanks a lot. Cloud communication is probably also you.
Yeah. Right. Also, that was mentioned in the highlights. We have merged the 2.1 message support in libOSPP, which means that also that now the 2.0.1 and the 2.1 implementation is using the same messages. The messages for 2.1 have just been extended by additional properties and fields. So we are using that as well for the implementation of 2.0.1, and of course also that is the foundation for every use case that is now following that we are now implementing for 2.1. With that, also the small change that was required to actually get 2.1 communication working on the WebSocket protocol level was merged. So you are actually now able to use libOSPP or even EVerest core to connect to OSPP 2.1 CSMS and basically support all the core use cases that have also already been supported in 2.0.1. Then we have the update for the notify EV charging needs. So if the EV sends its charging needs over to the charger via ISO 15118, we will also now forward that to CSMS. That was already something that 2.0.1 required and 2.1 as well. We had quite some flexibility enhancements and some bug fixes in OSPP 1.6. So lots of small things that have changed there to provide new configuration keys and make it a little bit more flexible. I already mentioned K01, K08 and 2.1. That's listed here as well. And we are already looking a little bit into functional block queue, and what we do now in the smart charging block will also help us a lot to get actually started with that.
Thank you. Car communication. I
Yes.
guess this is on Moritz.
Yes, I'll pick this up. So still a lot of development ongoing here in EVerest Core. Non-JavaScript Yeti simulator was added. That's a board support package so that you can either in the software in the loop simulation, but now also on a target with a C++ implementation, you can play with the board support without actually having board and peripherals connected and things like that. There are a lot of pull requests ongoing, and some have been merged for high-level communication tests to test the encoding and decoding infrastructure. In the libiso, used basically for -20 right now, 2 new dot releases have been made. First and foremost, TLS 1.3 support was refactored because it is a bit different than TLS 1.2, and I think there are some special needs for the pause and resume feature, and the certificate checks are a little bit different as well. And then, as also mentioned with the cloud communication, the notified charging needs, which uses the new ISO 15118 extension interface to forward this data onto OCPP, which requires that. The EV implementation is still a work in progress, a project of its own here. And as mentioned, the -20 pause and resume and charging and discharging, at least in the SIL so far, is working. That's all still ongoing. Let's continue to the MCS, which is, of course, somewhat of an extension of the car communication, the megawatt charging. So there's some work ongoing for extending the EVSE manager. There's a branch available for that, not a pull request yet. It is work in progress, so some stuff is still not final or for integration or flexibility, but this is being used at ChargeByte and already been tested with our test partners. And Exactly. It's MCS will be a new configuration option for the EVSE manager, which will then avoid using Slack and use new signals to the board support interface for the somewhat different interfacing there. And ChargeByte will be taking that also the EVerest part to the Charin MCS festival, which is dedicated only to megawatt charging. That's next week in Barcelona in Spain. So looking forward to that. And the opens, which were already here last month, some stuff of the documentation needs to be rewritten, and configurable base controller. Not sure what that means right now, but I believe this means the configurability of the whole thing. That's all the progress from MCS.
Thank you. Back to the infrastructure and tools. I guess this is Pete back.
Yeah, that's right. So there are quite some changes upcoming in the EVerest framework. Some refactorings that we plan to do to increase the efficiency of the framework. I'm also talking about the shutdown handling of modules that Kai has worked on and that we want to finish up. And then we have started to work on a different or like new configuration storage mechanism with the goal to be able to write certain EVerest configuration at runtime, so configuration of EVerest modules, and also make certain EVerest configuration readable at runtime, and to allow for easier migration support between different EVerest versions. We're still in the beginning of that, but probably this will move us to loading EVerest, not only being able to load EVerest or boot EVerest from a YAML configuration file, but also from a database, potentially SQLite. We do not plan to drop the support for the YAML, so that will still stay. But to be able to provide like persistence features and also in order to make it possible to read and write at runtime, which is a requirement that we have from like different sides, but one major side is OSPP. We think we need to make this change. We are currently working on that. Then there is a PR open to remove remaining JavaScript modules so that we can eventually drop the JavaScript support completely. That was mainly used or like only used for simulation modules that have been rewritten in C++. So that's quite nice that we are able to drop that at some point. There are still an open PR that I wanted to mention here, which is the exception handling during commands. That also touches a little bit what I mentioned in the beginning, that we have these small refactorings going on that we want to also finish up. And like there's one PR mentioned that has been merged, but I'm actually not sure what's meant by that.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Manuel.
Yeah, wanted to say, can take it from there if you want. We saw in the framework infrastructure and tools working group the last weeks very low attendance, so we will try to close this working group for now. We want to give updates, of course, via Zulip in the future if there is any news on framework infrastructure tooling, and if there is the requirement to have this working group again, we will just recreate that. This is possible, of course, anytime. Yeah.
Thank you. And this hands over to the next general working group. I think there was not much to report. It's, I think, mainly used for people who have questions and just want to tie in. But on the general working group structure, again, back to you, Manuel. I think last time we announced that you want to do some changes here. We discussed that in the TSC last time after the recording. And then also between the TSCs, try to come up with an implementation. And this is it.
Yeah, what we're trying to solve here and why are we talking about this We saw this very, very high dynamic of attendance changes in the working groups over time. So of course, there are sometimes hot topics and the working groups are full of people, and sometimes these topics get less hot over time. And yeah, we always created working groups in mind with running them forever. So this is not realistic, probably. Also, we saw that the time zones did not always match with the members that were attending those dedicated working groups. We tried to solve that in the past with alternating time slots from week to week, some time in European time zone in the morning, sometimes in the evening. But this made things a little bit complicated. And I guess, or we think that this is also the reason why attendance got low these times. And a third thing that we want to address is we had often non-tech topics in the dedicated technical working groups, and we wanted to suggest ways to steer that a little bit. And our suggested solutions are listed here from the bottom left here. We will keep the general working group. This is what we suggest, but have this as a first contact meeting primarily, and with a fixed time. So we don't want to have any technical things communicated there anymore. This is probably more a thing for newcomers in the future. And we would like to give them the possibility to have a general overview of how the community in EVerest works, which working groups we currently have, and give them a kind of a steering into the community. That means that we want to try to publish more things to Zulip, because we saw that Zulip really works great for communication. And we try to also add the working group meeting notes there in the future. The big positive thing would be that you can then also do a full text search and would find some topics that have been discussed in some working groups. Up to now, we had that separated to a Confluence instance, a instance that nobody found if you had no link. So it would be better to have this in really one place. Next topic is, or next suggested solution is that we have the working groups created in a more dynamic way. So what we did in the past is we discussed in the TSC, for example, that we want to create a new working group, and that was then created, and we set some time slot for that. We would like to have that more out of the community in future. So some community members will see that there is a topic that they want to discuss regularly, and in a developer-focused way. So community members just can form such a working group, define how long this working group is needed, also set the time slots based on where are the members sitting. And so this is not something that we centrally steer, so to say, but which comes from the community in a more democratic way, perhaps, or grassrooting way, I should better say. The next thing is that we thought that we don't need a moderating chairperson all the time. So what we had in the past is moderation from a non-tech chairperson. By default, we would not suggest to have that anymore, only if required. And we don't need anybody non-tech who writes some meeting notes, I guess. Also, tech people can do that together. As said before, the tech notes to be published in Zulip in the dedicated channels there. And if really needed, a chairperson can always join a meeting where discussion is hot, for example, or something like that. And last but not least, we would love to have some community guidance persons who coordinate the calendar entries or are just there if anybody needs help in the community or understand what we are doing here. Suggestion for that would be that Kai and me can do that. It's not a big change because I already had the one-on-one meetings in the past. So this can also stay this way if everybody is okay with that. So that is the question now.
So vulnerability management team. We got nothing reported, which is good. But still, having said, there's an ongoing audit, which is, I think we were mentioned last time in detail. Now the kickoff is planned, and yeah, this won't be discussed in detail in public because you want to get those things fixed, whatever is found, before any malicious attacker can use that. So we'll report afterwards in detail. At the moment, it's just getting started. Okay, monthly release notes. I guess this is back on Pete. So we're this month only on a snapshot release, and the consolidated release is then scheduled for April.
Yeah, so here's a list of things that we mainly already mentioned. We have initial OSP 2.1 support in the new release, proper TLS 1.3 in the -20, BIP ISO 15118 and the module, and even in EV Joseph. In the ISO-mocks, we are able to forward pre-charge events. The notify EV charging needs support is there in ISO and OSPP 201, so that this information is forwarded from the EV to the CSMS. I mentioned the energy management extensions, like the set point stuff that we merged for bidirectional smart charging. We have added the C++ ED simulator, which allows us to get rid of the JavaScript soon. There has been a small change in the API module to be able to differentiate between who finished the charging process, if it was the EVSE or the EV. There's a new interface that has been added, the over voltage monitor interface. We had a small bug in the EVSE manager when it was enabled and or disabled from different sources that has been fixed. There's now a withdraw authorization command in the authorization interface, which allows you to withdraw authorization requests that are still pending or have been sent to the EVSE, and you can now withdraw that for whatever reason. If like the user on the display, for example, wants to reject that previous request, that is possible. And there has been one fix in the auth module too, that was related to which EVSE is actually selected for an authorization if multiple could be addressed.
Thanks a lot. Okay, let's go on. What's planned next? On the roadmap slide, nothing has changed in details. So we'll now very slowly skip through, and you can just press pause and review it. But in principle, it's still the plan as we discussed beginning of the year, collected by the entire community. Well, I think, Pete, you have not done any major fixes. Okay,
no, at some point we can like move stuff from the Q1 actually to being done. But yeah, that's maybe something for next month when Q1 is actually done.
Yeah, good, thanks. Upcoming events. There's one I want to point out. Avera, who is organizing the EVS 38 in Göteborg, Sweden. So the Association of Electric Vehicle Makers, I think. We'll have to look up what is Avera standing for. They are organizing together with Pionics and one or two other companies a hackathon on the next EVS. And Pete himself will be the representative mentor for the EVerest community. So whoever is interested in joining EVS 38, you can hack yourself into this conference with getting a cheaper discounted ticket by joining the hackathon. Or if you actually want to hack, have a look, apply for the hackathon. I guess it will be a lot of fun. We're planning to offer about, I think, 50 to 70 multidisciplinary teams. It's quite cheap if you're a student. I think there will be prizes. You can get really cheap in the conferences, and there will be a couple of really good mentors there. So have a look, and next time I should put a link on this slide. I will fix it in the recording. We'll also send it to the EVerest mailing list, how to apply there. Otherwise, you find it easily on the EVerest 38 website. There in the program, there's a section, Hackathon, and you highly recommend it. And I think the conference is also quite interesting. It's not the classical, let's say, trade show next to trade show booth. It's really a scientific and also industrial conference and a trade show all in one. And last time in Korea, it was quite interesting to go walk around and dive into different topics. So what else is upcoming? ChargePoint already mentioned the MCS, not Hackathon, sorry, Testival in Barcelona next week. So safe travels. I will be a week later on OpenChain and Friends, which is actually all about open source in automotive industry, and will help with a session about some best practices. Right afterwards, while traveling with my colleagues to Nordic EV Summits, also happy to see you there. We'll be with ChargeByte and many other companies as well, and the Power to Drive in Munich, which I would say is the globally most important EV charging conference and trade show. So a big recommendation. There's a Charge and Testival and conference in Detroit, and as far as I know, joint office, Shankari, you or one of your colleagues might be there. I think it's still the discussion. I see you partly agreeing. Okay. Then there's an electrical conference. I will be there. Yeah, the workshop I mentioned, Shankari, our colleagues will be there. Oh, there's some duplicate
We're
content.
hoping to be there. We're still
Hoping.
under discussion.
Yeah, I see. So good luck with that. Fingers crossed, right? EVerest 38, already mentioned the hackathon, the Plugfest. Edito will be there, Elad will be there, also joining the hackathon as mentors. Phoenix and friends will be for sure at the EV Charging Hack Village at the Hacker Camping in the Netherlands. I think we now are doing this for the third time or so. It's really great fun. If someone interested in details, we can share things. Maybe still tickets available, and otherwise ICNC in August and LF Energy Summit in September. So yeah, that having said, next TSC is on 24th of April, so in 4 weeks from now. Happy to discuss things with you, or just see you in the public working group calls, for example, the general one. I think we have to also make sure that this is always updated. Then let's stop the recording and dive into the discussion. Thank you, everyone.